Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for hopping on today. We're going to go over some tips and some ideas for creating content right now that's going to serve your audience in the best way possible. Because right now, in all the coronavirus mess and all the unknowns, we don't know how long it's going to last. A lot of people are really restricted with what they can do. A lot of people are out of work, or they're home with their kids, and everybody's lives are just kind of flipped upside down right now. And we all have probably more eyeballs on our social media than we ever have before. No matter if you have a couple hundred friends on Facebook or followers on Instagram, or you've got thousands. And I want you to know that no matter the size of your social media, it's important that you share some valuable content, because you have people watching you and you have people looking for content that is not what they're sharing in the news and not what is coming out about the next infection rate for the virus and all of that. And so they're looking for something that's more positive than that. They're looking for something that is more uplifting than that. They're looking for something that's more interesting than that, and that's going to be more of a light in their news feed, that's going to bring them some joy, that's going to give them some new ideas, some new things to work on, some ways to stay healthy, all of that. And so I want you to know that you have a great platform to uplift the people around you, and I want you to be able to use it in the best way possible. And I think the number one thing I want us to focus right now, both personally and business-wise, is that we should never stop filling our funnel. You should not be stopping your traditional network growth activities, right? You should still be adding friends, you should be adding followers, you should be using hashtags to make new connections. You should be doing all of those things still, because this obviously is going to allow more eyes to be on your news feed. But once this all kind of blows over in a matter of months, there's going to be this new crop of people who saw you add so much value that they're going to grow in trust with you, and they're going to respect you, and they're going to admire you, and they're going to appreciate what you're saying. And so when you're ready to approach them about Plexus or talk about it or whatever, they're going to take you much more seriously. And so I want you to realize that you should be definitely filling your funnel right now. Be adding people in any way possible that you can, because I think that the more people you can add value to, the more reach you're going to have long term. But also, it might feel like you're slowing down a little bit and working on the content that you're putting out and trying to kind of step up your game content wise. It might seem like you're slowing down, but I want you to know it's because it'll allow you to speed up later, because all the value you're adding now is building relationships and building trust, and allowing people to know more of who you are. And a lot of these people who we might be welcoming into our networks, or they're already entering networks, there is so much junk that they're looking at on the internet, you guys. There is so much trash that's out there right now. And we all know that. If you venture too far off of our main Plexus newsfeed, there is a bunch of terrible just articles and videos and graphics and just things that are wasting people's time, are maybe putting them in a negative headspace, aren't really serving them. They aren't adding value to them. They're time wasters, all of that. And our job is to rise above that noise and to be interesting and positive and joyful and worthwhile for them to have a connection with us. And so that's the person we want to be, so that when we start introducing Plexus to them, it's something they know they can take seriously. They can trust us. They are more likely to interact and engage with our content. If we've been adding value, they're more likely to respond to our messages, all of that. And so your number one priority right now should be connecting with as many people as possible. Connection, connection, connection. And if that requires you to add more people to your network, then do it. And I don't want you to put pause on that just because there's all this unknown swirling around us. I want you to make sure you're still growing your network, because that's really important. And the more people that are in your network, the more people are going to see your stuff, and the more people might be wanting to join you in Plexus. And so I want you to not put that on hold. And so number one priority is connection. And then your second priority is going to be to add value to those people. And so when you add value to anybody, they value you back. That's the basic law of reciprocity. When people give us something, we want to give them something in return. And so they start to trust you because you've given something to them. And so they're giving their trust to you. And not only does their engagement with you help them see your content more, But like I said earlier, it makes them more likely to take it seriously, to spend more time on it, to read a whole post, to flip through your pictures, to message you about something, to comment, all of that, right? And so the more value we add, the higher the likelihood that they're going to do those things, which is what we want, obviously. So even if they aren't somebody who's ready to buy yet, they'll trust you and engage with you so much more during this time, that when they're ready, you're going to be the first person that they think of, or that when you reach out to in 3 months, 6 months, when you reach out to them about Plexus, they're going to respond or actually consider it and take it seriously and not ignore you and not say no. They'll entertain the offer because they've watched you add so much value to them and give, that when it's time for you to ask something of them, they'll be much more open to considering what you might have to offer them. And so if you're feeling lost with how to add value, you know, you've heard this, add value. If it was so easy, everybody would be doing it, right? Like, and it's this thing where we've been told so many times to give and come from a place of service and add value to our network. And it's like, what does that even mean? How do I do that? And so I want to give you some tips and an activity to try and think of ways that you can add value and grow your relationship with your people and your network, and solicit engagement and basically build that connection with people in your network. I'm going to give you kind of an exercise that I think will be helpful for you to kind of think of the ways that you can start planning out some content that might be valuable, and also think of ways to make it more impactful and solicit more engagement. So I want to let you guys know that you don't need to have some huge brand, okay? You don't need to be this like brand expert. I know that branding word gets thrown out a lot in social media. It's something that people have kind of, I think with the rise of social media and the rise of the brand influencer, it's become this thing that you've got to have this niche that you're known for and really talk about it all the time. You got to look perfect. And you got to do all these things in this one area. And this is your brand and you got to rock it. It's got to be different than everybody else, right? That is so not true, you guys. You don't need to have this huge brand that everybody knows you for, right? You don't need to have that. And you don't need to be different than anybody else. You really just need to be the same as the people in your network, right? That's it. You just need to be relatable. And the thing is, we all come from a certain demographic. We came from a certain job, a certain type of schooling, a certain area of the country, a certain whatever, right? And a certain upbringing, whatever, right? There's all these things that we're familiar with, where there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people out there that have done something very similar or in a very similar boat that we are all in, right? Excuse me. And so I want you to know that there's so many people out there that are probably in your network that are going through the same things you're going through. They're thinking about the same things you're thinking about. They're doing the same things you are. And it's the little average things that people want to see on their feeds because it's what they relate to the most. It's the things that give them a fun new little idea of an easier way to do something, or an interesting activity to do with their kids, or a fun, life hack, or what, right? Like, it's the little tiny things that people find interesting. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a new idea you're offering someone. Sometimes you can offer them a positive emotion. Sometimes it's making them feel heard because you're sharing an opinion about something that they also share, but nobody said it in the way you've said it before. Or maybe you're sharing, a good story that happened to you, and it's something that also happened to them, and it makes them feel good, and it allows them to relate to you, because maybe it's something that's a little bit embarrassing, but it ended up being kind of funny, and so it puts a smile on their face, and they're relating to you because they're seeing you on a level that's not the social media perfection that everybody sees, right? So serving your audience doesn't have to mean you're giving them this thing that they can take away and do something with it, right? It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't need to be something so big, right? It can just be a positive mindset, an uplifting word, a moment of humor, something that puts a smile on their face or whatever. But I mean, obviously the sharing ideas and concrete things that they can actually go do is wonderful. That's great and adds a ton of value, but I don't want you to put so much pressure on yourself. You've got to create good content, and on top of that, create these things that you can give them, right? Like if it's a recipe or a workout or a cleaning tip or an activity for your kids or whatever, right? It doesn't have to be that all the time. it can just be the way that you're talking about your life and the things that you're doing and that you're sharing about things that maybe no one else on their newsfeed is sharing about. And so I hope you have a sheet of paper. If I could see your face, that'd be awesome. If not, I don't understand. But I want you to get out a sheet of paper because I'm going to help you think of things that are maybe the smaller things you might not really be thinking about, but that might make a big impact in your network, the things you can share about. And so if it gives you some ideas in the coming days and weeks or month, you can kind of plan out what you're going to kind of share about. And so, all right, I want you to take out a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to make 3 lists of 1 through 5. Can you see this? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So make a list right there. I want you to make 3 lists, 1 through 5. And I'm steering away from this, like, try to find your brand, try to find your niche thing. I'm not doing a training on that specifically because I think we all uncover that by accident because of what we do in our daily lives anyway. I think that you don't have to name it and you don't have to shout it from the rooftops. It comes out naturally because it's the kind of person that you are. And I think we put too much stress on looking at ourselves and saying, well, what am I? What do I need to be? Who do I need to present myself as? What do I need? Like we put too much, I'm showing 1 through 5 again. Kelly asked me to. We're putting too much stress on just 3 lists, 1 through 5, of being this type of person, right? We're trying to label ourselves, and I don't want you to do that. I think that's too much pressure, and it makes you try and steer yourself in a way that maybe might be unnatural. Even if you love a certain thing, a certain hobby, a certain whatever, even if you love it, you're naturally going to talk about it anyway. So trying to label yourself as this passionate person about this one area, I think it gives us this false pressure that we have to be like an expert about that thing, and we don't need to be an expert about anything, right? You just need to be willing to share more than the other people are on your newsfeed. You don't have to be an expert about anything. It's even better if you're not. It's better if you learn along the way, because that's what's going to be more interesting. Nobody wants to hear somebody who knows everything about everything, right? They want to hear the person that's learning and failing and trying and actually showing up. So, all right, so you've made your list 1 through 5. Okay, what I want you to do for the first 5, so start your first 5 right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and look at your day yesterday. Think about your day yesterday. If 1 started in the morning, what are like the 5 major things that you did yesterday? It doesn't have to be that exciting, but what are like the 5, if you had to pick like 5 highlights of your day? Like if you saw someone said, oh, what are all the things you did yesterday? What would be like the top 5 things that you told them, right? So what is that? Is it, did you have to go to work? Did you make breakfast for your family? Did you go on a walk? Did you do a workout? Did you do a craft with your kids? Did you repaint your son's bedroom? Did you, like, what are the things that you did, right? So what are the top 5? And then maybe 5 is like the last thing you kind of did before you went to bed or whatever. If you're super passionate about something in there, like if you just, something was super cool, you tried this new thing, or you went to this new place, or you watched this Netflix documentary that was super awesome, like whatever the highlights are, like just whatever. And like no one's gonna see this except for you, so write them down. And then when you're done, give me a thumbs up when you're finished, and I'm gonna write mine. Okay. All right, got some thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, your next 5, I want you to think of the 5 highlights of your past week. So what are those? So you have a day, and now you're looking at the past week. If somebody said, what are some fun things you did this week? Or what happened to you this week? Or what did you do this week? It doesn't even have to be super positive. It could just be things that happened. Oops, I just spilled my active. Thumbs up when you're done. Yeah, you have to look at your calendar, remember what you did. I know, right? Sometimes we have to look back. It's like, what even day is it right now? And what I think is interesting in this is we're doing this in the middle of, a lot of people are shelter in place right now. A lot of people are home. They're not going to school. They're not going to work. They're not doing a bunch of their typical things, right? So when you think of your typical day you had yesterday, the top 5 things you did yesterday, and you think of the top 5 things you did last week, they're probably different than what you typically do. And that's what I want you to see right now, is that maybe how we used to think of sharing on social media was very based on our typical life before, if we were going to school or work or whatever, and now it's totally different. And so the types of things you can think about sharing right now are probably way different than what you were doing before, or even had time for before, or whatever, right? So you should right now have a list of the 5 things that you did yesterday, like major events that happened yesterday. Now 5 things of what you did last week, right? Okay, now for the third 5 things, I want you to think about, what are your main like concerns right now? Where does your mind wander to? If I just had to think about something that's going on in your life, what are the 5 things? They don't have to be some huge passions. Just if I said you have 2 minutes to sit here and just think about what's going on in your life, what would you think about? They don't have to be huge. They could be tiny. They could be what's for dinner, or they could be if you're a teacher, a lesson plan that you're trying to make for your kids online right now. Like whatever, it could be this huge thing or this tiny thing. If you're going to work, maybe it's safety while you're at work, or what are the things that you just had? If your mind wandered, what are the 5 things that you're thinking about right now? And then give me a thumbs up when you are finished. Okay. Got a thumbs up. Got 2 thumbs up. 3 people I can't see. Okay, got all your thumbs up. All right. Okay, look at your list. I got my whole list now of all my things, right? We've got highlights of the past day, highlights of the past week, and now things that we're naturally thinking about. If you're thinking about your life, things you're naturally thinking about anyway. So I'm gonna ask you some questions to help you hone in on the things that it would be worth your time to start sharing about, and that other people might relate to, and you might be able to naturally talk about and expand on and feel like you can confidently share about those things. I'm going to ask you some questions to kind of guide you to what things in there you might want to consider sharing content about. And then I'll give you some tips for that. So first, is there something that shows up on all 3 of your lists? Circle what that thing is. So circle something that shows up on all 3 of your lists. Okay. Even if it's on like 2 of them, that's like if it's on 2 out of 3, it's probably something you do often, right? Or you think about often. You do or think about often if it's on 2 or 3 of your lists. Okay. What on your list is something that people often ask you about? Do they ask you for advice in a certain area? Do they ask you what you did about a certain thing? Do they ask you how you're doing with that certain thing that you're doing? Do they ask you how you feel about something? You see where I'm going? Like, it's something you talk to people about, and they might ask you questions to further that conversation. So what's something people might ask you about? You can circle that thing. If it's something people message you about, or if you talk to them, you naturally gravitate towards that and they expand on it, whatever. So something people ask you about all the time. All right. Now, when you're looking at your lists, which things on there do you feel you've got experience in that area? or you feel like it's something fun that you can't wait to do next, or if somebody asks you about it, if I ask you about it right now, you could talk about it forever. Like if you feel like it's something fun or interesting, or maybe it's something you've done your whole life, or maybe it's a natural part of your day, that it's something maybe you put on there, you're doing laundry, right? You're thinking about doing laundry. I did laundry yesterday. I did laundry this past week, right? Like maybe it's something as mundane as that, but is it something that if I asked you questions about it, you could talk about that. I could talk about that. I have a ton of experience in that area. So whatever that thing is, it doesn't particularly have to, or it's something you're looking forward to, right? You're like, you talk about it a lot because you're excited about it or something, right? You can't wait to do it again, or you've done it a lot, or you feel like you could field questions about that topic pretty well. So now you should have some things circled that are constantly recurring in your life, or that you're thinking about a lot, that people ask you about, that you talk about a lot. So you're thinking about it, you're doing it, you're talking about it, right? And you've got things that you feel like if I approached you right now and asked you to do a Zoom about that topic, like you could talk about your process, or what goes into it, or tips you've learned about this, or when you do it, or why you do it, or whatever, right? Like whatever the thing is. So now I want you to, at the bottom of that piece of paper, so I've started drawing this line. So I'm drawing this line halfway through, right? The bottom of that piece of paper, I want you to make like 3 columns, kind of like how you did your 1 through 5s. Make 3 columns, and at the top of each of those columns, I want you to put one of those topics at the top. So I'm like starting to write mine. So I'm making 3 columns. I'm going boom, boom, boom. I'm going to label these 3 columns, right? So I'm writing mine right now. Okay. So now, in those areas, can you expand on the types of activities you do within those areas, right? So, for example, one of the things that showed up on every single one of my lists was me making meals for my family, because I like cooking. I enjoy cooking. And so I make every meal for my family, even if it's a snack to a 7-course dinner. I am the person in the kitchen making all of the food. So that is a huge highlight of my life, because I am physically in my kitchen making food all the time. I'm making breakfast, I'm making kid snacks, I'm making lunches, I am packing school lunches for Carson when we're back at school, I'm making dinners, I'm planning dinners, I'm meal prepping, I'm like all the things, right? So there's all these things that I'm doing within that category. I'm the one who's doing the shopping, right? So I'm looking for what I can shop for. I'm looking on Pinterest for recipes. I'm going through my old recipe books that my grandma gave me. I'm planning out our week. I'm doing all this stuff, right? So what are the things that are happening within that category? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? If you have a question, put it in the chat box. But what I'm saying is go through each one of those categories. What are all the things you do in that category? Another thing that we're doing a huge highlight right now, kids activities. I'm trying to keep my kids busy, trying to keep them learning. I'm trying to keep them having fun, all that stuff, right? And so I'm trying to keep myself from not going insane. I'm trying to make things easy. I'm trying to make them easy cleanup. I'm trying to make them engaging for my kid. Like, though that's another thing. Like in the past week, the past day, and what I'm thinking about moving forward is like keeping my kids busy through this shelter-in-place situation, right? So there's tons of things that I could talk about in that. And so I want you to think the little tiny things that go into that. For example, something I thought about sharing. Let me give you this example right now. If you see it on social media, don't be surprised. Okay, so my kids love like breakfast sandwiches, right? So like a English muffin, egg, meat, cheese, mustard, right? My kids love that. So I have this little like tool that's like a microwave egg poacher. If you know what I'm talking about, you probably know exactly what it is, but they're like on Amazon, whatever. It's awesome. You put an egg in there and a tablespoon of water, and you microwave it for a minute, and you've got a perfectly poached egg. It's awesome. And it comes out in a little circle. And so I've thought of sharing that and actually doing it on, and I'll give you tips about this in a minute, but like doing it on Facebook and showing people, this is how easy this thing is. It takes 1 minute, and my kids have a breakfast sandwich and it's like their favorite thing, right? And it's a lot better than me like sitting there manually poaching eggs and whatever, right? And so think about all the little tiny things that go into that and what you could share about it. And it's going to take some time. So this is something you could take the rest of the day, go throughout your next day, go throughout tomorrow, and look at what you're doing and see the little tiny things that you could share about that. Not just, I mean, I talk about cooking because I love cooking, but if it's like, yes, you could share a recipe. Can you talk about why you love the pans that you're using? Can you talk about why you buy this kind of vegetable instead of that vegetable? Can you know what I mean? Like, think about it in different ways and different things you can share, because it doesn't have to be some huge revelation for you to share about it. If you're talking about doing workouts, like I love Becca's workouts, you all know that, like maybe it's not the whole workout. Maybe it's like, hey, if you got an injury, this is a great exercise you should start doing. And here's an adaptation you can try, right? Like there's tons of people with all kinds of injuries, like whatever, just kind of like adapt it in different ways to share little tiny pieces about it. Because I think we get so caught up in trying to share these big, like teaching moments, and it doesn't need to be that. It really doesn't need to be that at all. And I want you to know that you could share the little tiny things and it would be just as impactful, because it's the fact that you're showing up and sharing it that is going to be the added value. Because there's not enough people showing up right now. There's a lot of people sharing a bunch of junk or a bunch of stressful things or a bunch of articles about coronavirus, right? It's you showing up and actually sharing something that you feel confident in, that you could talk about, that you've done for a while, that you've learned, that whatever, right? That you're genuinely interested in, that's genuinely a part of your life. That is what's going to add value. It doesn't have to be some huge thing, a huge lesson that you're teaching everybody. It really, really doesn't need to be that. And so like Kelly, you were painting your son's bedroom, right? I think that recently they were painting, like, I don't know, what did you learn about like tips for painting? Or I don't know, like, why did you pick this color over that color? Or what were the tools you used? Or how long did it take to pick a paint color? Or, you know, whatever the thing is, you can think of all the different directions you can talk about it. And so now that you've got your headers, right, that can change. You guys, your main interest can constantly change. You are changing. You don't need to pick these now, and you can never talk about anything but these ever again. That's not true. You can change them whenever you want. But the thing is, this is what's going on in your life right now that you can share about naturally, because it's literally what you're doing right now. It's what you're thinking about right now. So that's where you can work off of. So you start listing all these things in these categories. And now what I want you to think about is not only the little tiny things within each of those as you go about your day. Now you've got your topics. Keep this out on your kitchen counter. Write on it whenever you think of something, right? Whenever you do something, whenever you think of something, whenever you go somewhere, whatever. And now I want you to start taking more photos, taking more videos. Take a video, take a boomerang, right? Take a video clip, take a photo, because obviously we probably, most of us know this, but photos rank higher than text only. Videos rank higher than text, and live video is king. So if you can do a live video, do a live video. And it doesn't need to be like this 15-minute long, like online lesson about something. It does not need to be that. Your content is going to rank higher than everything else if you're going live. Okay. And I want you to, in it, ask questions, ask people, share things, whether it's in your content or in a live video. If it's in written content or live video, ask questions of people, ask them to share things, ask them to drop emojis for things, right? Ask them to like it or love it, like, you know, give me a thumbs up or hearts or whatever if you're blah, 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 right? Like, it might feel cheesy to do that, but asking for it is a good way for them to do it. Like, a lot of people won't do things until they're told to do them. So I think that asking for engagement is important. So make sure that most of your posts, if not all of them, include some type of call to action that requires some engagement. And always post a photo. If you can post a video, even better, post a live. And ask for engagement if at all possible, whether it's in your written content or in your video content. and know that it doesn't need to be really long. It doesn't need to be a really long thing. You don't need to look perfect. Your photos don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up. Everyone's got a messy house. Nobody's going anywhere looking pretty right now. Like, we all know that. So just be that way, and it's okay. It's even better if you just come as you are and don't like try so hard to be something that you're not. I don't want you to feel that kind of pressure, because it's not necessary. It's just showing up that's going to set you away. It's going to take you away from the pack. It's going to put you ahead of the pack. It's going to make you the person who is adding value and setting yourself apart. Just showing up and sharing things that are different and valuable and interesting and positive, and hopeful and all of that is so different than what everyone's sharing right now. So when you are posting a video, some video tips. If you're posting a video, whether live or recorded, I highly encourage you to also upload that video to IGTV. Not very many things are on IGTV right now. And I would take advantage of hashtags, because there's just not a lot of traffic on IGTV, and it's very easy to get a lot of views on IGTV, but also new followers. But if you don't know this, you know how you can't add a link in the Instagram caption of a photo? You can add a link in the caption of an IGTV. You could link back to anything. You could link back to your Facebook, your Instagram, your anything you posted earlier. You could link back to a Plexus post if you're talking about, the health of your children or whatever. You could link back. You can link back to whatever you want. Okay, so you can put a link in an IGTV caption. So I want you to know that that's a very huge benefit of IGTV. So any video, like any video. And so if you're making a video, which you should try to make videos, put it on IGTV, take advantage of the caption where you can put hashtags and a link, and do that. You can also put a link in your bio, but my link goes to my Facebook. So do whatever you want there. But I want you to know that because that's a huge advantage that I want to make sure you're taking advantage of. Now, for writing the written part of content, I don't want you to think like you need to tell this huge story and again have this big lesson, right? So not necessary. And a lot of people are busy right now. They're home with their kids, or if they're still working, they're probably under a lot of stress and very busy. And so long captions often don't get read. I want you to try and keep them short, but also not too short. So it's not like, hey, I'm making dinner. Like, that's not a good caption, right? Like, doesn't make anybody want to engage with that, right? Like that, no. The thing is, you want to have some content that's maybe at the top, like I call it above the fold, like on a newspaper. So think about in the top 2 sentences, maybe 1.5 sentences of your post, is if it's going to make someone want to click continue reading or see more. Like, is that going to want to make them expand that? Because if so, that shows the algorithm that they're engaging with that content, right? So think of it, reread your stuff and say, okay, is this more than 3-4 paragraphs? If it is, maybe 5, depending on what you're saying, whatever. If it's more than that and it's like a big long story, it's probably too much. Also, look at the top couple sentences. Are they catchy? Do they make you want to continue reading? Think of it like you're writing a newspaper headline, or you're writing the subject of an email you want somebody to open. Okay, so read that through and make sure that it's something that somebody would want to expand in your content, and just a handful of paragraphs maximum, and edit it to make it concise. I know a lot of us write content on the fly, but even if you're writing it, also I suggest to write it like over in a note and not write it like in Instagram or in Facebook. Just don't. Write it over in a note. Look at your formatting, okay? Read it over. Do you have good sentence structure? Are you separating paragraphs? Honestly, you guys, if there's run-on sentences in there, or if you've got one big blurb of text that's like should be 3 or 4 paragraphs, you're gonna lose people. If you're jumping from idea to idea to idea, and you're not using like good punctuation and no ideas are separated, or there's a bunch of run-on sentences without any punctuation whatsoever. I mean, I'm not trying to be like super stickler on like English, but it's hard to read. It's hard to read. It's hard for people to follow. So reread it, send it to a friend. How does this sound? Is this okay? If it's an area that's not comfortable for you, then ask for help. It's okay, right? We're all here to help each other. But I can't tell you how many times I like go read some, like even other just non-Plexus people's content, and I'm just like, I can't follow that. Nope, scroll. I don't know what she's talking about. Just all these words, all these sentences, like it's not broken up, it's a big one. Or you expand it and it's just boom, all this text. Nobody's gonna read that unless they're just like sitting around with like nothing to do, right? I sure as heck am not home with 2 kids. I ain't gonna read somebody's long paragraph instead I gotta scroll a couple times to get to the bottom of it. There's no way I'm reading that. And so I want you to remember that. So anything above the fold, read it. What's your top 2 sentences? Do you want to open that? Read that. And then how's your formatting? Are your ideas separated? Do you have good sentence structure? Are there run-on sentence in there? Read it out loud. Read it out loud to your husband, whatever, right? Have him read it. Have a friend read it. Have me read it if you're really like trying to figure out if it's good, right? So that's an area that I feel passionate about because I've written a lot of like copy and things. I was in advertising and marketing and public relations. And so that's something that I find is important and I want to share with you guys. You don't need to be an expert in that area, but just reading it out loud can change a lot. If it sounds like ideas should be separated or there should be a period here or this should be a separate sentence, like think about it, read it out loud, okay? Also a great way to add to the formatting and kind of make it more interesting and visually appealing is do bullets, but with emojis. So like if you're separating an idea and whatever this next paragraph is talking about, use an emoji. It's easier for people to follow than a big chunk of text that maybe it's even separated on the little paragraphs that have, 3 or 4 sentences each. It's easier to follow if they know what emoji they were on. They know what emoji they started on. So if they navigate away from it or take their eyes off of it, they can look straight down and know exactly where they were, because the emojis not only make it more interesting and more like visually appealing, that actually can help people follow along in your content. So emojis are important. I want you to use them. I think that they're important to use. They add contextual value. They add aesthetic value. They add a hint of just personality to your posts. I think that if you're not using emojis, you should be. But I also don't want you to overuse them. You don't say like, I'm making dinner and then have like 17 pictures of different types of food, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Just make like the one emoji that's like relating to the food that you're, or whatever, right? So don't overuse them. Don't overuse them. Use them in formatting if you can. I often use them at the end of a paragraph or at the beginning of a paragraph, or at the end of a sentence or beginning of a sentence. And I don't cluster a bunch of them together very often. I think that can be too much because as people are reading, they still want the fluidity, right? And if you use too many in a row, they're kind of breaking up what you're trying to say. And the last thing, one of the last things I want you to think about is, would somebody want to share your content? We're adding value in a way that is natural to us because we're talking about things that we are already doing or thinking about or that are occurring in our lives or that we feel like proficient in, right? But is this content something would find so interesting that they would want to share about it with their mom, their sister, whoever? And that's not just going for Plexus content. That's like any content, right? Whatever you're sharing with them, whatever you're putting out there, is it something that somebody might like enough to share it? Is the photo or video or something that might be interesting enough to share it? Yes, people want to see a peek into your life because that's why we all like reality TV. It's like this train wreck you can't stop watching. Of course, people want to see into other people's lives, and that's awesome as well. But I want you to think of if you're sharing something that's something someone can learn or take away from or makes them feel a certain way, whatever that is the way you're sharing it so impactful that they might want to also share it. And so not every single piece of content needs to be that way. But if you're sharing something, if you're posting something that is definitely like a thing of value, if it is a tip, a recipe, a workout, an item you're recommending them to buy, whatever it is, right? Is the way you're presenting it in a manner that somebody would want to share it. Now, on Facebook, when somebody shares something, you see the photo or the video, but you also see a little bit of the content. So that gives you a bit of both of those when you share something on Facebook, which is awesome. But when you're on Instagram, when somebody wants to share it in their stories, they're not going to share a picture of like your face, right? Like if you're giving them like a tip about something, they're not going to share just like a picture of like you and your kid, right? They're probably not going to put that in their stories because their network probably doesn't know you. But if you're sharing something like a thing of value, like I was talking about earlier, I think that including like a graphic about it or a picture of the thing or talking a quote, whatever the thing, even maybe you're just sharing your feelings about something. If you could make like a quote graphic or something, especially on Instagram, that's stuff that might be more shareable. But to take it a step further, I know that we also don't want our catalog or Insta, the whole like list of all of your things, all of your pictures, to be too crazy. Like you want it to kind of follow the same like trend, like the same, like a lot of us use photo presets, filters, that's all kind of looks the same, has the same vibe. This is where I would love for you to use the carousel. The carousel feature is like you can add multiple photos to an Instagram post, right? You can have the main photo be of you or your family or what you're doing or whatever, right? But then within, if they swipe, they've got more like graphic type content that might be something they want to share, like in their stories, for example. And so like I share a lot of recipes. I like cooking. I share a lot of recipes. So there's recipes in my Instagram that people could share. And I have them on IGTV and I link back to my recipe, the written recipe from my IGTV video. I'm doing that IGTV video. But also with the carousel feature, using lots of photos, same for Facebook. When people click on the Facebook, like, what's it called? All the pictures, right? Album. When they click to open your album of photos, that shows engagement. That shows Facebook engagement. They're interacting with your post. So if you can do that and share multiple things, it shows that they're interacting with your post. And also on Instagram, they're spending more time with your content, so they're swiping, right? And if it's something that can be shareable, that's awesome, because then they can share a photo that's in the carousel. It doesn't have to be the main photo of the post. They can share something that's back in it, maybe the second photo or whatever. So think of that interaction as well. Don't forget about that. Yes, video content is king, so do that. But when you're posting like a photo of something, or even a video on your main feed, if you can add like secondary images or videos or whatever, as people interact with it, that's going to boost your algorithm. And if you want to keep the look of your Instagram one way, but you also want to share, the breakdown of a workout or something written, then do that in the second image of the carousel or whatever. Right? Like back in the carousel, so people are interacting with it. It's something that's shareable, but it's also boosting engagement. It's also rating higher than just a photo by itself, but it's also matching, the look of your newsfeed, all of that. So I shared lots of tips, lots of tips for you. Hopefully you have some ideas on the things that you could be talking about right now that might come about naturally for you to think about, because you're already doing them as a part of your day. You've been doing it over the past week. You might be thinking about them moving forward. Hopefully you have some things that can be memory jogger for you. Keep this piece of paper out on the counter, like I said, add to it. And I want you to think of ways that you can hopefully, number one, maybe go live about one or all of these things in the coming weeks. If not this week coming up, it's Sunday, great time to plan ahead. But how can you film a video about this thing? You can even do a time lapse, you guys. If you're making something with your kids, or if you're doing something specific, or do a time lapse video. Do a boomerang. If you're holding an item, whatever, like make it a boomerang instead of a standard photo, or whatever, right? So find a way to either go live about it, make it a video if you can, or post a photo about it, but then start thinking about the content. Open a note on your phone and have like post ideas. Right? Just start starting to write things in there. As you're on the fly thinking of things, start plopping ideas in there. Just plop a sentence in there or two, and when you get back to it at the end of the night, start expanding on it, right? And start writing more about it. And then pretty soon, when you get around to doing the live or making the video or doing the photo or whatever, you've already got the beginnings of your content, right? And so these ideas are things that you can work off of in the coming days and weeks. And if you want to go through and do this activity again after next weekend, do it over again, and you can think of new things, because I want you to be naturally sharing about things that can be of value to your audience, because they relate to you. They're your friend for a reason. They're your follower for a reason, because they relate to you. They like who you are, and they like the way you show up. And so if you can take whatever you're already experiencing in your life, whatever your passions are, whatever your interests are, whatever you're doing, take those things and just turn up the volume on those things, right? So whatever the commonalities are that you circled, all you're doing is just turning them up a notch, right? You're just sharing about them more. You might have shared about them a little bit over the past weeks, months, years, whatever. You might sometimes talk about this, sometimes talk about that. Talk about it more, because there's people out there who want to hear exactly about that thing. And maybe it's not the one person that needs to hear about all three of your things. Maybe there's just somebody who really wants to hear about this one area, and every time you post about it, they're on it. They love it. They are totally into it. And that's okay, because you want to build this relationship and build this connection and start gaining that trust, because you're showing up for them in an area that they're really interested in. And that is what's important about this. It's not you having some special brand. It's not you sharing something that's never been shared before. It's not that. It's sharing who you are on an elevated level. So it's being who you are. And like I said, just turning up the volume on the things that you're already doing. And so I just wanted you to really hone in on the things that are already a part of your life that you can naturally share about. And I want you to remember to keep sharing about Plexus in a way that's coming from a place of service. Share more testimonies. Share more heartfelt written posts. If you can write them yourself, or even just take snippets of other ones that you like, some verbiage, but really add some of your own flavor to it, even better. Share more photos and videos of yourself. Obviously, you're sharing someone else's testimony. That's a little bit different, but show your face in your Plexus content, but come from a place of service and not sales. Make it something that's a little more heartfelt during this time, because everyone is stressed out. Everybody is worried about what's happening in the future. Everybody is in this weird, unique situation where nothing is really normal right now, and everyone's on high alert. And so I want you to not stop sharing, just change the way that you're sharing to be more sensitive, more gentle and passionate, and kind of accepting of the way the world is right now. I think that times are changing, so the way we're sharing needs to change. The types of photos and videos and verbiage, all of that needs to shift a little bit, because we're in some pretty sensitive times right now. But I don't think it is smart to go dark right now. From an advertising perspective, it is not smart to just turn out the lights on your business. Not smart. If you had any other business, if you were trying to run a restaurant, heck yes, you'd be advertising people to come get takeout right now, because you need to keep your doors open. And so I think that it's smart to realize that you're running a business, and there is a lot of earning potential right now, a lot. But we need to realize that the way we might have done business before needs to shift a little bit. And it's not a way that's trying to take advantage of what's happening right now, but it's a way to realize that you can still do business in a climate like this, and business still can be good. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can change the way you're doing business to be more receptive to the people that you're working with. And that's important to realize. And right now is the time to be adding more value than you ever have before, because everybody is looking for an outlet to bring them joy and hope and something interesting and newfound knowledge, new ideas, just a light on their newsfeed, because there's a lot of crazy out there right now. And so it's our job to bring the love. And so that's what we're here for. And so I hope that this activity was helpful. And if it's something you want to revisit, absolutely revisit it. If you need to do it before you plan your social media posts next weekend, do it. You can make your lists 1 through 5, make 3 lists 1 through 5. The first 1 through 5 is the top activities I did in the last day. The second 1 through 5 are the top activities I did in the past week. The third 1 through 5 are the things I'm thinking about, or my mind naturally wanders. If I sat in silence for 5 minutes, what are the things, where is my mind going, right? What am I thinking about? Those are the top events that are in your life that you feel proficient in, that you're doing right now, that you could talk about right now because it's top of mind. You're already passionate about it. You're interested in it. It's going on in your life. So do that activity, and then look through those 3 lists again and say, okay, what's a common thread in here? What am I doing a lot of? What am I thinking about a lot? Whatever. And come up with 2 or 3 of those. And then those are your categories. Now, what things are you doing in your life that are within those? And find the tiny little things, the tiny little details that you can share. Because sometimes it's those that make the most impact. You don't have to do some big teaching lesson about something. It could be something very, very small that you share that you might be doing or you might have learned or that's interesting or fun or just might make someone smile or whatever. So start listing out those things that you go about your day, and then those are your content ideas. Start taking more pictures, take some videos, go live if you can, and put your videos on IGTV if you can. Use hashtags and link back. And hopefully here's some ways to relate to your audience more and allow you to build some connection with some people because we're all at home, social distancing right now. Does anyone have any questions, or are we good? Was that good? Helpful? I can't see some of you, but I see Kelly. How many times do I post per day? Okay, good question. I post at least twice, sometimes 3 times per day. And I try to separate my Plexus content with my personal content with 1 or 2 posts at least of personal before I add something Plexus related. And I separate them by time too. Like if I posted something, you know, Plexus-y in the evening, right? I might post a personal thing midday the next day. So I kind of let it have its time, because you might notice that Facebook boosts things like a day later, 2 days later, you're looking at stuff from like last Wednesday. It's doing that. And so give it some time, because if you're posting too much on top of yourself, you're just stifling your own content. So I let it kind of hang for a little bit. And if I have some really good engaging content, I let that ride for a little bit. If people are still commenting on it, I let that ride. And you know, maybe I posted something, you know, last night and it's still getting comments all day. It's still getting comments all day. And then I might wait till this evening or tomorrow morning to post something else. But I'm always present in my stories. So definitely always have content in there, because it disappears so quickly. Every 24 hours, you need to refresh it. And so don't be afraid of reusing story content, especially Plexus stories. If you're telling testimonies or using product info or whatever, don't be afraid to recycle that. Not everybody sees everybody's story all the time. So obviously not like day after day, but if you're reusing like an old, you know, story that you shared 3 weeks ago with somebody's testimony, that's fine. It's okay. It's okay. Because odds are most of your audience probably didn't see it. I mean, if you have maybe 1,000 Facebook friends right now, the amount of people seeing your stories is probably like 70 people, right? Like, or maybe, I don't know, something like that. It's a very small percentage. And so just know that. Same goes for your posts. Just know that not everyone is seeing it. So vary the times that you do it, because people are online at different times of day, but definitely it should be no more than like every other post should be Plexus content. If you can, like 2 posts and then a Plexus post and then 2 posts and then a Plexus post, is good. But if that's causing you to like not post for like days, like if you're posting on Monday a Plexus post and you get 1 post out on Tuesday and another post out on Wednesday, and then your next post is like Thursday for Plexus, that's too far apart. You've got to be more present than that. So hopefully you're getting a Plexus post out every day, if not every other day, and sprinkling in your personal content between there. So that would be my suggestion. Alrighty, anything else? Okay guys, thanks for hopping on. Hope this was helpful. You can message me if you have any more questions.